Hey there, 5th and 6th grade. How's it going? I hope you guys are having a great week and had a great Easter. I'm excited about this lesson, mostly because this is the final lesson in our series this year on seeking Jesus. I'm hoping that this can kind of wrap up some of the big ideas that we've been looking into this year. So I'm going to say we just jump into it. Here we're going to be in Genesis 22. So this is a pretty popular story. It's the story about Abraham sacrificing Isaac. You'll see here in the Bible that God calls Abraham and says, hey, Abraham, you might be loving this son that I gave you more than you love me. So I'm gonna give you this test. I need you to take your son, climb up a mountain, and sacrifice him on an altar to me. That doesn't make much sense though for Abraham, because he was like, you promised me a nation and this is my only son. Like, this is my nation, is this one kid. This doesn't make much sense, but I will do it, I will obey. So Abraham takes Isaac, goes to the mountain, they climb up the mountain together, they build the altar, and Isaac looks at his dad and goes, Dad, where's the sacrifice? Like, we've got the sticks, we've got the stones, we've got the altar built, but where's the sacrifice? And Abraham says, God will provide a sacrifice, knowing that it was going to be his son. Now, this seems crazy. This seems like a ridiculous request from God. Like, why would God ever ask anyone to give up their son? Hold on. Didn't God do that, though? Like, what we're seeing here is God's not asking Abraham to do anything that he wasn't willing to do himself or that he didn't do himself. We see in the New Testament that God gave up his son, and Abraham now is giving up his one and only son. And this is breaking his heart, but he's willing to do it to show God that he will follow him no matter what. And I want us to look at a few verses here. I want us to look at verses 10 through 13. Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son, but the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Do not stretch out your hand against the lad and do nothing to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham raised his eyes, looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the place of his son. So what happens here is that a lot of people think this angel of the Lord that comes to Abraham to save Isaac is actually Jesus, which I think is really cool. The fact that we're all the way up here in Genesis and we're seeing what a lot of people think is Jesus stepping in to literally save someone from death. And so I think that us trying to seek Jesus here is very literal in that sense, that there's a good chance that he actually is here in the story. But not only is there this like physical, actual Jesus that we might see here, there's also the symbolic aspect of Jesus that we could see by looking into the New Testament and see the mirrored relationship between the two stories. That Abraham gave up his son, God gave up his son. That Jesus actually steps in here to save Isaac, and that Jesus actually steps in our lives in order to save us from sin and death. And I think that that's the major encouragement here, is that this entire book, I mean, if you have a Bible, this book is full of ways that God has saved his people. And we've looked at those all year. We've been looking at those in detail all year. God is in the business of saving his people. And what we're seeing here is that Jesus is willing to step in to any circumstance to save people. And he's doing that with Isaac and Abraham here. He's doing that in the New Testament. And he's doing that still today with us. As we read the Bible, no matter where we're reading it, we should be seeking Jesus. I mean, if he's here in Genesis, and he's also there in the New Testament, and we can see those connections from this one story, he's everywhere in it. So my encouragement is that as we read the Bible for the rest of our lives, no matter where we read it, we should be seeking Jesus in it. So my challenge for you this week is I would love for you to find a Bible story, a Bible passage, anything like that, that has Jesus in it. And I would love for you to email that to me. So email me a little update of how you're doing and let me know where you found Jesus in the Bible this week. You can find him anywhere you want. Any passage, any book of the Bible, anywhere in this little book that you want, you can find Jesus. And I want you to try to find him, and I want you to let me know if you do. Because I believe that God speaks in a crazy way with this book. And I want you to try to find Jesus this week. I'm going to pray really quick just to close this out. Dear Lord, we thank you for this book. We thank you for your word, and we thank you for your Son. We thank you for the opportunity to learn about him this year and to seek him in all of the Bible. And so I just pray that this week that we would be able to find Jesus, that we would be able to seek after him in this book, and that we would be able to find truths about him in this book, God. And I just pray that you would communicate that clearly to us, and that you would just continue to be there for us right now, God. In your name, amen. Thank you guys for tuning in to Wednesday Night Home Edition, and we will see you next week.